All right, hey everyone. I just thought I'd do a video to explain how I think through writing a query when I see a question. Just some of you have asked me how they can improve, or just when they are reading things that they get the principles of it, but they're just not really sure where to start, or just how to end up with the answer for a query. So this isn't from any textbook. This isn't anything I've looked up. I just sat down and tried to think, what do I do when I am trying to answer a question, when I'm trying to write out a query. And this is the process that I go through. So I thought I would just explain it, then go over an example. I might do another example in a separate video, then you can just watch them both if you want. If it is useful, maybe I'll do other videos like this. But I just thought and I'll upload this document to ELC along with this video so you can use it. It's just a cheat sheet, that's what I'm calling it, where there's just, when you see a question and you're trying to write a query to get data out of it, I think these are just questions that if you ask and answer these as you go along, I think it should help you in getting the answer. And then I explain what I mean by each of these questions in the sheet as well. So let's just start using, I'm going to use a question that was in the quiz that we took on Wednesday, February 19th. And just go over each one of these and then talk about what I wrote in the details section and just basically how I would go about solving this query. So I've taken these 4 questions and I've put them in my SQL workbench here. Hopefully you can see this right here. And this is the question, one of the questions that was on the quiz. So I'll be going back and forth between MySQL Workbench and the Word document that I wrote out and just trying to explain my thought process behind a query. So first, let's just try and understand the question. It's saying, which planes were purchased by 25 or more customers where the total value of the orders was more than $100,000? So we have this question. We know we're talking about planes. We need to know data about customers. We need to know the value of orders, which has this monetary value. So a few pieces of data there. So this first thing, this first question I ask when I'm trying to figure out how to write a query is, what data do I need and which tables is it in? So we know that this is in the Classic Models database, which I can just pull up right here. So it says planes, and so you're like, what does that mean? You can probably assume they're talking about products. But if you're not sure, just in this case, when I first wrote this query, I actually wasn't really sure. So I was like, okay, that's probably a product. That's probably somewhere in there. So I just went to the products table and saw what was in it. Select star from products. And I think in general this is good. If you're not really sure what column that refers to, just look at the data itself, just with a select star. So you have things talking about product names. I don't really know which one of those are planes or not, but you can see vendors, descriptions, quantity, and then you can see a product line. And as you're scrolling through, that's just what I thought to do. I see, okay, some of them are planes, and there's not many of them, but you can see it's listed in there as a product line. So for this first one, we need, I'm just trying to be very specific. I would be doing this in my head, but just to put out what I would actually be thinking, okay, I need a product line. From this is products table. So I know I need that. I need which planes. So we're talking about product lines. I need to have access to that. I want to be able to tell which plane it is, so I'm probably going to need either the product code, probably product code or product name, because I want to find out what these planes are. So that's I need to identify either by the name or the product code. And then let's see what else it's talking about. We're purchased by 25 or more customers. So I need a way to identify customers so I can know if it's associated with the plane or not. So let's just look back at our model. So we know we have the products table. We have order details that it's connected to, but it has order numbers and product codes, but it doesn't actually mention anything about customers. So let's just go to another table. We have orders, we have order numbers, all these things with dates, status, comments. But you see here we have a customer number. So that means we can know when a customer has bought a product. So we can stop there. We don't, because we get a unique identifier, a primary key for customers here, we don't even need to go up to customers. So I'm just going to stop here at orders. I know I need an customer number, and I can just get that from the orders table, is what I just saw. Okay, group which planes are purchased by 24 or more customers where the total value of the orders is more than $100,000. So total value, if you go back over here and you're looking at the columns here, you can see that when we talk about value, and I talked about this in class before, but if you've forgotten, the value of something is just the price times the quantity. It's not its own column. It just depends on the value of that order is going to change depending on how many of the products were ordered. And then the price of each one of those is listed in the order details. So those are the two things we're going to need in order to calculate the value. So that's quantity ordered and price each. Quantity ordered and price each. And we're just going to be getting those from the order details table. So that should give you an idea of, so that this is the data that we're working with. We know we need these three tables, so we need to join them all together. So you can do it in any order you want. I've already done with products, so I'm just gonna start there. That just, in my mind, seems to make the most sense. And if you go back into this document when I'm explaining what I mean by this, what data do I need and which tables is it in, I just start by joining all the tables with a select star. I don't even start filling out the individual columns most of the time when I'm confused about a query. I'm not really sure which columns to do, what I'm counting, or anything like that. And then I just look at what I have. So just don't fret about getting your select statement perfect at first. We can come back to it. So I'm just going to keep it with a select star. Let's go to products. Let's call it P to shorten it. Let's do a join. Then we know that we needed also the orders table, but that's not directly connected to products, so I'm going to first join order details, like you can see here, because you need to join it where the primary key and foreign key is. So you can only join with a table that's directly connected. You can't just hop like that. So let's join the order details. Join order details, I'll call it OD, on P dot, I think it's product code equals OD dot product code, okay. And then I know that we need the orders table, let's call it O, in order to get access to that customer number, which we talked about up here. On O dot, I think it's order number equals OD dot order number. Orders, is that what it is? Okay. So let's run that. Alrighty then. Okay, so my second step here is notice that I'm just doing select star, I'm not doing anything else yet. For me, this just helps me, I want to figure out what a row represents in the joined results. So we're joining all of these tables together. And it's useful for me to consider, does each row here represent a unique product? Does it represent a unique order, or does it represent a unique order details? Just clarifying that in my mind helps me later on when I'm trying to understand what it is I'm actually counting or summing. So one way you can just look at it and realize, okay, we're repeating tons of products here, so each row doesn't represent a unique product. But if it's confusing to look at this and try to figure out what's going on because we're repeating so many things, one thing you can actually do is order by, you could order by product code and then order by order number, and you'd see that we're repeating both of those. But just a more intuitive thing for me, or a conceptual way to think of it, is just go back here and look at what we're joining by. Whenever we are joining another table, each row in that returned result represents the unique row is going to be whatever has the many side of the relationship to it. In this case, if we just selected from products, each row would represent a product, but once we join it to order details, each row is going to represent an order detail. So that means product information is going to be repeated. Same for orders, even though we're joining both of them to this is the many side on both of them. So even though we have all three tables, each row just represents an order detail. That means order numbers are going to be repeated because they appear multiple times in order details, and that means products are going to be repeated multiple times. So again, this just helps me. This is how I do it. Each row represents an order detail. And you can read through, let's see if I have anything else in here. That's what I just explained. It helps me know what I'm counting or summing. And each row in a join, it'll represent whatever the many set of the relationship is. So that's where we're at. Now let's look at number 3. Figure out each thing that you want in the select statement, and if it's the attribute of a group or the thing that you're wanting to actually group by. So I think sometimes people are unsure when they read a question. They see, okay, we're talking about planes, so that's like a product. We know that's a product line. But there's also, we're talking about customers, so are we grouping by customers? Or there's the value of the orders, are we grouping by the product of that or something? If you're having trouble thinking through that, I think one thing that could help you is to list out what is an attribute of a group. And by that, I explain that here. By attributes of a group, I mean anytime you're taking a sum of something, you're counting something, you're finding the average, you're finding the min or the max of something, that's an attribute of a group. So just start with that. So looking at the question, which planes were purchased by 25 or more customers? That means we're wanting to count. So group attributes. We're wanting a count of customers. We don't even have to decide what column we're going to count on right now, but we want a count of the number of customers. It's just saying planes. It's not saying we're counting planes yet, so that's just, we're not doing a function on that. It doesn't imply that we're going to do that, so just move on. We want purchased by 25 or more customers. We want a number of customers, so that implies that we're counting it. Where the total value, if we're wanting a total of something, that's either a count or a sum. In this case, we want a value, which means we're summing up the value of individual orders or order details, which implies that we're going to be doing a sum, because it wouldn't make sense in that case to count the values, because we want to add up the values rather than just count how many of them there were. We want the actual total value of that. So it's going to be a sum of whatever the value is, however we end up counting that. And once you get this, when you know that there's group attributes of counting and sum, you know that you're going to be grouping by something. That's just how it works. Unless you're counting the entire table, or you're summing the entire table, and you don't need any other data, you're going to be using a group by. You especially know that you need a group by because there's still another piece of data, and here planes, which is as we talked about, that's the product line. And because it's not a group attribute, that means we know it's what we want to group on. Planes or the product line. In other words, we're basically wanting to find out information about planes. The count of customers will give us a count of what per plane. We want the value of what, the orders per plane. Whatever we want to group on is whatever we want to find out the information about. We want to find out information about the planes. So that's what we want to group on. So if we come back down here, let me shrink these things actually. So we can say, okay, we know what we want to group on, which is planes. So we can do a group by. And planes is something that's given in a product line. Or actually, so we're grouping by the type of plane, which it tells us a plane if it is a plane in the product line. But we're actually, so I sort of misspoke there. I didn't misspeak. We still are wanting to group on planes, but the different types of planes isn't given in product line. It's given in the product name. That's, if you go back, if you're unsure, just look here again. Select star from products. So it tells you if it's a plane or not in the product line. Planes, but the actual different types of planes, you differentiate them in the product name. So we'll just do product name. So if we wanted to do that, we could throw this up here, product name. And since we're grouping by products, we could also do product code. Either one will work, but I'll just stick with product name. So we know that we want to view that, so let's just start there. Let's make sure our query still works. And there we have the product names right there. And right now we're showing all the products. We're not filtering on planes, but I'll get to that in a second. And then we know that we have a few group attributes that we're wanting here. So let's just add those. We're wanting a count of customers. So a way to count the customers is just to use the customer number. And then the sum, and like I said before, value is just something you have to learn. Value is just the sum of the quantity. It's the product of the quantity ordered and the price of each for each order detail. So we're going to do it's quantity ordered, spell it out, times price of each. So we can run this. This isn't totally correct yet, but just run it and see what we're getting. So to know exactly what it is we're wanting to count, this goes back to why for number 2 I said each row in wanting to know what each row represents, because when we do counts, we're counting rows. So each row represents, in this case, an order detail. But we don't want to count order details, because in an order detail, this is confusing, just look at it. From order details. And just to prove my point, I'm just going to do an order by customer number. Let's see. Oh, yeah, customer number isn't in there, so that would be it would have to. It's in once you join, then the customer number is in there. But a customer can make many orders, so there's like in order number. What I'm trying to get at is that things repeat in this table. In order numbers, many customers could order something twice. It's just the principle I'm trying to get at here. So if you are just counting the number of times a customer number appears per product name, that isn't necessarily a unique number of customers, because a customer could have bought something multiple times. So if customer 1 bought a specific product like 3 times, you'd be counting that same customer 3 times in addition to any other customer that bought a product. So just to get rid of that, we're going to do distinct. And hopefully the point I'm trying to make is that I knew to do distinct because I understood what each row represented. That it represented an order detail. It didn't represent a customer. So because customer number is going to repeat, has the potential to repeat, and I don't want to count the same customer twice, I knew how to do distinct. That's the point I'm getting at doing number 2 first before we figure out the group attributes, which are the counts and the sums. So we do that right now. That'll change the numbers that we're getting so far. And then let's go to number 4. Let me see if I missed anything here. For number 3, just figuring out what you're grouping on. Yeah, like I said, whatever you're doing a group by is what you're not doing the functions on. So let's just move on to number 4. If it is asking you to filter on something, is it an attribute of specific rows before we group, or is it an attribute of the group? So in this example, it has a few things that it's asking us to filter on. One, it's asking us which planes were purchased by 25 or more. So what that's basically asking us is it's asking us to filter to only show planes, and planes are a specific product line, which I identified up here that we need to consider. And the thing is, that's an attribute of a row before we group. If you're just even confused about that, you could even just try this won't work, having product line equals planes. The thing is, planes doesn't exist because it's an attribute of specific rows of products, and once we've grouped, we've lost that attribute. Attributes of groups are usually things like counts or sums. We can filter in having on attributes of groups like this, like having a count of customer numbers above a certain number, which we'll get to. But because planes, the type of product line is an attribute of a specific row of a product, once we've grouped, we lose access to that. So this just isn't even going to work. We run that, and it gives us an error down here. Let's see. says error code unknown column product line in having is it lowercase p? It doesn't even know what column that is because we've lost track of that because that product line is an attribute of a specific row. So come back up to, so that if it's not an attribute of the group, it's something we want to filter out before the groups are formed, then that just means we put it in the where clause. So where product line equals planes. So get rid of that. We can run it. So you can see just by looking at the results, we're getting much fewer planes now, much fewer product names, because we're only showing those that have the product line of planes. So that's one thing we're filtering on. We're filtering to only show, let me write this out, to only show planes. Product lines, groups, row, not something we are summing or counting in the group. So it goes in where. The other thing is asking which planes were purchased by 25 or more customers. 25 or more customers. So this is an attribute of the group. So we're grouping by the product name, and we have a count of those customers. This count, this 25, only applies to this specific group. It is an attribute of the group. It's not an attribute of the row. It's of this group of all ATAs that have been sold, and we're grouping all of the customers that have bought this. So because it's an attribute of a group, that means if we want to filter by it, it has to go in having, because group filters, anything that filters after we've created the groups just has to go in having. That's just how SQL works. So in this case, we know we want to filter by this, so we can throw this here, and we're saying we want by 25 or more, so that means we can do a less than or equal to 25. And you'll see if we do that, we will further filter out some of these things. We're only showing those that are above 25. But it's also asking us where the total value of the orders was more than $100,000. So total value, that's what this is up here. It's not the value of a specific row of, for example, right here, this 89,000 isn't a value of a specific row before we've grouped. Once we've grouped, we have this sum per group, this sum quantity order, the sum of the values. That is an attribute of the groups, so we know that we have to put it in the having as well. We just do that with an and. You can just copy and paste this. This is saying above 100,000. And then we only get these two that have a value above 100,000, shown by this, and a number of customers that have bought it that are at least 25 or over. So these two in the quiz were our questions. In this cheat sheet, I have a couple other things. Is asking me to compare the value of a row to an average for that specific type of row. It doesn't even necessarily have to be average. I might change that before I post it to a sum or a min, whatever. And in this case, it's not. I'll try and think of something in the future where I can go over that. That's just a specific situations, and I explain those down here. and is asking for a percent. In this case, it's not. So that's just a specific situation that this question doesn't address, so we don't need to go down to that. So we're done with this one. Hopefully that helped. Really getting. Let me just finish this out. Where that would be count of customers uses a function, so it is a group attribute. Same with sum of value. Hopefully asking these questions helps you just know where to start. I think a big thing with writing queries is you can just look at the question and freeze up and not even know where to start. So hopefully this just gives you something to work off of. I'll try to post another example of me going through these. But more than following these, if this works for you, that's great. If not, I'll try and think of other ways that would help think through running queries. But really, it's just practice. If you practice enough times, you just gain an intuition for how to write queries. You don't have to think through things specifically. Things just start to pop into your head and how you can make things work. So if after looking through this, you're still really having trouble, there's not much else I can say besides just keep practicing. Just get practice questions and try to write out the SQL for it and compare it to a correct answer and see where you went wrong. So hopefully this helps. I'll try and do another quick example, hopefully something quicker than this video. This has been long, but and if they are helpful, maybe I'll do some more in the future. So thanks, hope this helps. See ya.